The quiet hum of the ceiling fan was the only sound in the dimly lit bedroom as Amara sat on the edge of her bed, her shoulders slumped, her eyes heavy with unshed tears. She clutched a piece of blood-stained tissue in one hand, staring at it with disbelief, as if this time things should have been different. It was her sixth failed attempt to conceive in just over 2 years of marriage. Each month she hoped and prayed, fasted, drank bitter herbs, and held her breath when she missed her period, even for a day. And each month she was met with disappointment. Her reflection in the mirror across the room showed a woman on the edge, pale, tear-streaked, emotionally battered, but trying to keep faith. "Why me, Lord?" she whispered, clutching her abdomen, as though she could force her womb to obey. Her husband, Chike, lay beside her pretending to sleep, but the way he exhaled harshly each time she sniffled made it clear. He was tired of her pain, tired of her prayers, and most of all, tired of her barren womb. Amara slowly got off the bed, wrapping her wrapper around her chest. She didn't want to cry in front of Chike anymore. Every tear she shed seemed to make him more distant, as if her sorrow was a burden. She walked barefoot into the kitchen, knelt in a corner near the fridge, and wept silently. The kind of weeping that contorts the face but refuses to make sound. That's where Ngozi found her, the ever-present best friend who lived 2 streets away. Ngozi burst into the kitchen with her usual exaggerated concern. "Amara, my sister, what is it again?" she asked, rushing to kneel beside her, wrapping arms around her trembling shoulders. Amara leaned into her, sobbing. "I don't know what I did to God. I don't know why my womb is locked like a vault." Ngozi murmured scriptures in her ear, rubbing her back and kissing her head like a sister would. But beneath her concerned gaze was something darker, an emotion well hidden. Envy, superiority, perhaps satisfaction. Because while Amara wept for a child, Ngozi had already started forming a secret bond with Chike, one that was about to grow into something far more dangerous. Later that night, as Ngozi left the house, she glanced back at the window where Chike's silhouette stood. Their eyes met briefly. He didn't flinch. She smiled lightly, gave him a small nod, and walked away. Amara remained unaware, still curled in bed with a Bible open beside her and her tear-streaked face buried in a pillow. The next morning, Amara woke up early, prepared breakfast, and greeted Chike with a soft voice. He grunted, barely acknowledging her. She told him she was thinking of going to another hospital for more tests. "Go. Do whatever makes you feel useful," he muttered, buttoning his shirt. Her eyes watered again, but she turned away quickly. And as he walked out, slamming the door behind him, Amara whispered to herself, "God, please don't forget me." It started with the small churches, one-room buildings tucked into street corners with tattered signboards that read things like Powerful Hand of God Healing Ministry or Mountain of Fire Redemption Fire Chapel. Ngozi would arrive early at Amara's place, wearing a headscarf and clutching a Bible. She always brought a bottle of anointing oil or holy water from the previous pastor they had visited. "This one is different, Amara," she would whisper confidently. "The pastor even has triplets now, after 10 years of barrenness." Amara, emotionally drained and spiritually desperate, would follow her without protest. In each church, they were asked to kneel for hours, to pray against spiritual husbands, to bring their underwear for cleansing, to sow seeds of faith. Amara gave everything, her time, her hope, and even her savings. But still, her womb remained silent. Ngozi always seemed to know which church to suggest next. "There's this prophet in Ikorodu. People say he delivered a woman who had snakes in her womb," she would say excitedly. Amara, fearful that her infertility might have spiritual roots, agreed. And so she found herself in strange places, rolled on bare floors, shouted over, splashed with dirty water, and even asked to fast without food or water for 3 straight days. Ngozi stayed by her side through it all, offering emotional support. But every time Amara would look up from a tearful prayer session and spot Ngozi's face, she could swear she saw something else, something smug, something too calm for someone who should be grieving with her. Still, she buried the feeling, reminding herself that Ngozi was the only one who truly cared. After all, Chike didn't even ask how the church visits went. Her mother-in-law already called her a glorified tenant who couldn't produce an heir. But Ngozi? Ngozi never left her side. One particular evening after a fiery service in Mushin, Amara was too exhausted to climb her stairs. Ngozi sat beside her on the veranda, fanning her gently. "My sister," Ngozi began, maybe you should try something radical." Amara looked at her, confused. "What do you mean?" Ngozi hesitated, then whispered, "Some women have gone through this before. And when everything failed, they tried other men. Just once. To see if maybe it's not their body that's the problem." Amara recoiled in horror. "Ngozi, what are you saying?" But Ngozi's voice softened, persuasive. "Just once. Just to clear doubt. You won't even need to tell anyone. You need to know if it's you or not." Amara shook her head violently, but the seed was planted. Ngozi had spoken the words out loud, and despair would begin to make them echo louder in Amara's mind with each passing day. After much pleading, Chaik finally agreed to accompany Amara to the teaching hospital in Yaba for fertility testing. But his presence was cold and forced. The doctor, a kind older woman with glasses perched low on her nose, spoke gently but firmly. "Madam Amara, your tests are normal. No blocked tubes. No fibroids. Hormones are good. But sir, we need your own semen analysis to complete the diagnosis." Chaik's jaw tightened. "What for?" he barked. "She's the one that can't get pregnant." The doctor sighed. "Sometimes, the problem may be male factor infertility. It's standard." Chaik stood up. "So you're saying I'm the problem?" He didn't wait for a reply before storming out of the office. Amara apologized profusely, tears already pooling in her eyes. The doctor placed a hand on her shoulder. "You are not the problem, and you are not alone." That night, Chaik didn't speak a word to her. Amara tried to explain that the doctor only wanted to help, but he cut her off sharply. "Don't ever take me to places where they'll try to make me feel less of a man." Then he picked up his car keys and left the house. Amara sobbed into the darkness, cradling her arms around herself like a shield. As always, Ngozi came the next morning like an emergency responder. "I told you not to force him," she said, pouring tea for Amara. "Men have ego and just do the ones you can do as a woman." Amara nodded weakly. "Maybe I shouldn't have pushed." Ngozi placed a hand over hers and looked into her eyes. "You're trying. That's what matters. You just need to find other ways. We won't give up." And so, they tried even more hospitals. Private clinics in Lekki, fertility labs in Ikeja. Each result told the same story. Amara was fine. But every time Chaik was asked to test, he would grow angry and disappear for days. Still, Amara bore the shame alone. To the world, she was the barren woman. In private, she was the one holding on to a cracking marriage, terrified that her inability to bear a child would cost her everything. Little did she know, the one person she was leaning on the most had already begun to chip away at her marriage from the inside, with lies, seduction, and a cold, calculated plan. Amara sat in the balcony of her modest flat, her arms wrapped around her knees, eyes glazed with exhaustion. It was 2 a.m., and her soul felt like it was being crushed under the weight of unanswered prayers and a crumbling marriage. The room behind her was quiet, Chaik asleep without touching her all week. He hadn't initiated intimacy in over a month. Her phone's gallery was filled with scriptures on fertility, screenshots of herbal remedies, testimonies from online women's groups, and lists of ovulation days, all useless now. The silence of her womb echoed louder than words. Ngozi appeared from behind the kitchen door, wearing her usual wrapper and scarf. "You've not slept, Amara?" Amara shook her head. "I'm tired." "What if I'm just empty?" she asked, her voice cracking. Ngozi knelt beside her, rubbing her back. "You're not empty. You're just under spiritual attack. And you've tried everything. Churches, hospitals, even your own husband won't cooperate. Maybe it's time to try what desperate women try." Amara turned, confused. "What do you mean?" she asked. Ngozi lowered her voice like a devil offering forbidden fruit. "I know someone, young, healthy, from the gym I go to. Just once. No one will know. He's done it for others before. You need to be sure it's not you." Amara stood up instantly, her eyes wide. "Ngozi, are you hearing yourself?" You want me to sleep with a stranger?" Ngozi laughed softly, holding her friend's hand. "It's not like that, my sister. It's not for pleasure. It's just insurance. So if you conceive, you'll know it's not your fault. You've done everything else. God helps those who help themselves." Amara's breath trembled. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. But as the night dragged on and her tears flowed, the idea, horrifying as it was, didn't seem so outrageous anymore. Her desperation twisted logic into a shape that looked like survival. The following evening, Ngozi arrived with a calm, calculating smile and a well-dressed young man named Newell. He was polite, shy even. "No pressure," he said, looking at Amara. "I'm just here because Auntie Ngozi said it's to help a family." Amara sat on her couch, hands trembling, heart racing. She felt like a sinner, a traitor, a victim. But Ngozi whispered in her ear, "Just once. Just lie there. If it doesn't happen, forget it ever did." The act was mechanical, quick, cold. It left Amara sobbing in the shower, scrubbing her body like she could erase her shame. The next morning, Chaik was unusually cheerful, for the first time in weeks, because Ngozi had spent the night at his house under the excuse of watching over Amara. Amara never knew her humiliation was orchestrated by the same hand that patted her shoulder with sympathy. And that night, in her pain, Ngozi held her and said again, "Don't worry, it's not a sin. It's survival." Weeks passed. Newell never contacted Amara again. She didn't want him to. The guilt sat heavy on her chest, and the shame of that night haunted her like a curse. Every little movement in her womb made her nervous. Was something growing in there? Or had she just made the biggest mistake of her life for nothing? Ngozi, however, kept acting like nothing happened, always smiling, always bringing soup, and always suggesting one more try. "There's another boy," she said one afternoon while plaiting Amara's hair. "He's even finer, stronger. You might not even need full intercourse. Just get close, make sure." Amara shook her head. "No, I won't do it again. It made me feel like an animal." Ngozi paused, chuckled, and leaned in. "Then what are you? A saint with an empty womb?" The words hit Amara like a slap. She stood up, unable to speak. For the first time, she saw the venom hiding behind Ngozi's soft eyes. The second young man was never officially introduced. Amara only saw him once, outside her compound, shirtless, muscular, with Ngozi chatting and laughing with him. She felt used, cornered, confused. That night, she locked her door and blocked Ngozi from entering. But the friend she thought was a sister simply showed up the next day with tears. "I'm only trying to help you. How else will you know it's not you? Do you want Chaik to leave you?" And that guilt, deep cultural guilt, crept back in. In a society where barrenness was a woman's shame, Amara began to believe that her morals were her prison. "God sees my heart," she whispered one night, trying to justify what she was about to do again. But she never slept with another man. She backed out at the last moment. Her instincts screamed something wasn't right, not just with the plan, but with Ngozi herself. Meanwhile, Ngozi was glowing literally. Her skin shone, her laughter came easily, and she began to post subtle pictures of romantic meals and private spa sessions on her WhatsApp status. "How is your fiancé?" Amara asked one day, unsure why she felt jealous of a man she had never met. "He's fine," Ngozi replied, smiling slyly. "Very fertile." She rubbed her stomach casually, and Amara gasped. "You're pregnant." Ngozi smiled wider. "Just found out. About 6 weeks." Amara's hand shook. "6 weeks ago, you were with me in 3 different churches." "He came down to visit," Ngozi said, not breaking eye contact. Amara forced a smile and hugged her, fighting the tears rising in her throat. Something felt deeply wrong. But she didn't know that the real father of that child was sleeping beside her every night, pretending he couldn't stand the sight of her, while planting seeds in her friend's womb. The news of Ngozi's pregnancy spread fast within their women's circle. Amara smiled through it all, at the baby shower planning, the prayer group congratulations, and the teasing about becoming Auntie Amara. But inside, her heart was shattering. She didn't understand how Ngozi got pregnant so effortlessly while she remained barren despite everything. Maybe it's just not my destiny, she whispered one evening, sitting alone in her room. Her back ached, her head pounded. She was tired of fasting, tired of guilt, tired of hearing God's time is the best. She looked at her body in the mirror and saw failure, stretch marks from years of trying and hoping. No baby, no comfort, just silence. And as if her sorrow wasn't enough, Chike had grown colder than ice. He no longer came home early. He no longer asked how she was. He no longer touched her, not even in anger. Then one night, Amara saw something that shook her. Chike came home late, drunk, smelling of perfume that wasn't hers. As she helped him remove his shoes, his phone lit up on the table. Out of reflex, she glanced and saw a message, "Baby's kicking. He wants his daddy. Baby bottle red heart Ngozi." She froze. Her mind refused to process the message. Her hands trembled as she picked up the phone. She scrolled through their chat, intimate messages, hotel reservations, doctor appointments. Pictures of Chike rubbing Ngozi's belly. Videos of them laughing together in private rooms. Her knees buckled. She wanted to scream, to cry, to break the phone into pieces. But instead, she quietly placed the phone back, stood up, and walked to the bathroom. She vomited until her body gave out. The next morning, Ngozi arrived at her house like nothing had happened. She brought pepper soup and baby scan photos. Amara watched her, quiet and hollow. "You're unusually silent today," Ngozi teased, sipping malt. Amara looked her in the eye and asked, "Are you sure that child is from your fiancé?" Ngozi didn't blink. "Why would you ask me that?" "Because I know Chike is the father," Amara whispered. Ngozi smiled calmly and said, "Prove it." And just like that, the truth was no longer hidden. It was weaponized. Amara sat back, breathing slowly. The betrayal wasn't just personal. It was strategic, calculated, and brutal. She was being erased from her own marriage. And the person holding the eraser was the very friend who once laid hands on her belly and prayed for fruitfulness. Amara's days blurred into each other like gray rain clouds, endless, heavy, silent. After discovering Ngozi's betrayal, she withdrew completely. She stopped attending their women's group meetings, skipped church services, and barely spoke. Her voice had become a whisper. Her prayers, now silent screams, trapped in her throat. The house felt like a tomb, and Chike was the ghost that haunted it. He barely spoke, except to grunt orders or ask for food. Amara no longer confronted him, not because she was weak, but because her soul was too weary to fight anymore. What was the use? Even the betrayal didn't hurt as much as how easily Chike discarded her, as though she had never mattered. As though the nights they prayed together, dreamed together, fasted together, had meant nothing. He laughed freely with Ngozi now, brought her to parties, picked her calls openly, and didn't even hide their affair anymore. Amara became invisible in her own home. But something strange began to happen. Her body started to feel different. She was tired all the time. Her breasts ached. She couldn't stand the smell of fried oil. She chalked it up to stress at first. But when she missed her period and threw up after brushing one morning, her hand trembled as she picked up a pregnancy test. She waited for the result in the bathroom like a prisoner waiting for a verdict. 2 pink lines. She gasped. Tears blurred her eyes. "No, it can't be," she whispered. She dropped to her knees on the bathroom floor, sobbing uncontrollably, not just from joy, but from grief. After all this time, after all the humiliation, the pain, the shame, her womb had opened when she least expected it, when she had lost all hope. She pressed her hands on her stomach and whispered, "Thank you, Jesus." It was a miracle, but it came too late to save her marriage. Still, some part of her, a sliver of the old Amara, believed this baby could fix things. Maybe Chike would change. Maybe he was just misled. Maybe Ngozi had bewitched him. Maybe the baby would break whatever spiritual chains had poisoned their home. She began to dream again. She sat with the baby scan in her hands every night, humming softly. She talked to the baby like a friend, placing her hands on her belly and telling it stories. She bought a small box and placed baby socks, a pacifier, and a tiny bib with Daddy's little one embroidered on it. She wrapped it in gold foil and added a card. "Surprise, Daddy. We made it." Then she planned the surprise. She would take it to Chike's office. Let everyone see his joy. Let the world know that her shame was over. That she too was now a woman. That she too had been chosen by God. The morning of the surprise felt unusually bright. The Lagos sun shone intensely, almost like it wanted to witness the unfolding drama. Amara dressed carefully, soft yellow Ankara gown that hugged her slightly swollen belly, neat flat shoes, and a calm, natural glow. Her joy shimmered beneath her skin. She took extra care, applying lip gloss, gently fixing her headscarf, looking at herself in the mirror like she was reclaiming something stolen from her. She picked up the gift bag, delicate and beautiful, just like her long-awaited hope, and walked out of the house with a heart filled with butterflies. The Kiki ride to Chike's office was bumpy, but she didn't care. She rehearsed what she would say when she gave him the gift. She imagined his shocked face softening, his hands lifting her in joy, his kisses falling on her belly. Maybe love can be resurrected, she thought. The moment she stepped into the reception at Chike's workplace, her stomach turned, not from pregnancy, but from an unexplained dread. She approached the front desk and asked to see her husband. The receptionist smiled. "Oh, you're here for the baby ceremony?" Amara blinked. "What baby ceremony?" The woman pointed toward the hallway. "The new baby. Sir Chike just became a father. They're having a small welcome party in the staff lounge." The words punched her in the chest. "Father," she whispered. "Yes. Madam Ngozi just delivered. You didn't know." Amara's bag dropped to the floor. The receptionist looked confused. Amara didn't respond. She walked toward the lounge like a woman walking to her own funeral, each step heavier than the last. And then she saw it, balloons, cake, people laughing, and in the center of it all, Chike smiling proudly, holding a newborn baby, while Ngozi stood beside him, radiant, dressed in a white gown, grinning like a thief who had stolen paradise. Time stopped. The room began to spin. Amara froze in the doorway, her gift bag hanging limply in her hand. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. Chike turned, noticed her, and his face dropped. Ngozi's smile faltered briefly, but she recovered quickly and leaned into Chike like a wife. A few heads turned toward Amara, confused. "Who is that?" someone asked. Amara's legs buckled. The gift bag fell. She collapsed to the floor in front of everyone, her head hitting the cold tiles. Gasps filled the room. The card that read "Surprise, Daddy." "We made it," fluttered to the floor, landing near Chike's polished shoes. He stared at it. The room went silent. For a brief moment, Chike looked at her with what seemed like guilt, then turned away. That hurt more than anything. Not just the betrayal, not just the public humiliation, but the fact that the man she once loved couldn't even rush to help her. Her vision faded. Then darkness. Amara woke up in a hospital bed, alone. The ceiling fan spun lazily above her as monitors beeped beside her. Her head throbbed. Her belly ached. A nurse walked in. "You fainted," she said kindly. "Your blood pressure was high. But the baby is safe." The baby. Amara turned her head slowly and began to cry. It wasn't just sobbing. It was guttural, trembling grief. It felt like her soul was tearing from her chest. The nurse placed a hand on her shoulder and left her to mourn. Chike hadn't shown up. Neither had Ngozi. Nobody called. Hours passed. Amara sat up, picked her phone, and read through their chats again. Ngozi had not only betrayed her, she had done it strategically. She had comforted her, advised her to sleep with strangers, and lied to Chike that Amara was cheating. Screenshots, twisted messages, fabricated chats. She had weaponized the very thing she suggested. And Chike believed her. It took days before Amara was discharged. She didn't return to her home. She went straight to her aunt's place in Suralere. Her aunt wept when she saw her. "You look like someone who's been buried and dug up," she said, cooking bitter leaf soup and whispering blessings into Amara's belly. Meanwhile, news of Chike's baby mama turned wife spread on social media. Photos of Ngozi cradling the newborn. Comments praising Chike for moving on. Lies that Amara was barren and promiscuous. Her name dragged through the mud by people who didn't know her story. And still no apology, no explanation, just silence, just mockery. She wept every night, holding her belly, talking to her unborn child. You'll know pain, but you'll also know strength. Because I'm not dying here. I won't. And then one day, as she lay on her aunt's balcony watching the sky, a strange calm settled over her. A stillness. A fire. Let them have their lies. Let them laugh. Let them mock. But I will rise. She decided to keep the baby. She refused to go back to Chaik. No legal battle. No social media war. Just quiet strength. Quiet vengeance. She deleted all photos of him. Blocked Ngozi. Erased everything that reminded her of what she lost. The only thing she kept was the card. Surprise, Daddy. She folded it and placed it in her Bible. A reminder, not of her shame, but of how far she would rise. Alone, pregnant, betrayed, but unbreakable. The days that followed Amara's public collapse felt like a waking nightmare. She kept expecting to wake up, expecting someone, anyone, to call and say it had all been a misunderstanding. But instead of remorse or clarity, what arrived was a lawyer's letter. Divorce papers. No explanation. No family meeting. Just cold ink on white paper, delivered like a death sentence. Amara clutched the envelope and wept on her aunt's veranda, her aunt pacing behind her and muttering prayers. They want to kill you before your time, she said, fanning Amara's back. Amara hadn't yet found the courage to call Chaik. She was scared of what he might say. But that call came unexpectedly, and it wasn't filled with love. Chaik's voice was sharp, accusatory, like a blade. So you were sleeping with boys behind my back while crying for a child, he spat. Amara's heart dropped. What? Who told you that? She gasped. Don't play dumb. Ngozi showed me your chats. She showed me your confession. You're a disgrace. It felt like being stabbed repeatedly. You mean the chats she manipulated? The boys she introduced to me? The things she made me do? Amara cried. Chaik scoffed. You're lying. She said you begged her to help you cover it up. That you even confessed it was your way of punishing me for not loving you enough. That broke Amara. She wanted to scream, to shake sense into him through the phone. But instead, all she said was, you were already sleeping with her, weren't you? Even while she was praying with me. There was silence. Then Chaik hung up. That silence said everything. Ngozi had not only destroyed her marriage, she had flipped the entire story, recasting herself as the victim and Amara as the villain. She had played the long game, and she had won for now. Word spread quickly. Family members whispered about Amara's infidelity. Church members looked at her with pity. Even after all the prayers, they would say, nobody asked her side. Nobody cared. Because Ngozi had planted her version of the truth first, and Amara's truth sounded too painful to be believed. Even her own mother, Mama Anyakachi, called from the village with tears in her voice. Amara, what have you done? Why did you disgrace yourself like this? Amara tried to explain, but the shame was already cemented in everyone's mind. And Ngozi? She paraded herself as the new wife proudly, wearing Amara's old wedding wrapper to church, carrying the baby like a trophy, acting like she had rescued Chaik from a Jezebel. She fed Chaik lies daily. Amara tried to reach out once more, one final attempt to clear her name, but Ngozi intercepted the message and posted a twisted screenshot online. See what she sent my husband, the caption read. Even after sleeping with multiple boys, she still wants him back. Women are wicked. The post went viral in their community WhatsApp groups. Amara shut down her phone, curled into herself, and cried until her voice cracked. She realized then, she wasn't just losing her marriage. She was losing her name. It happened one Tuesday morning, without warning. A group of people, Chaik's relatives, a court bailiff, and 2 policemen, arrived at the house she and Chaik once shared. Amara had gone there briefly to pick a few of her remaining personal things, a suitcase, a framed picture of her late father, a Bible her mother gifted her on her wedding day. She had just unlocked the front door when they barged in. Madam, by order of court, you are hereby evicted from this residence, the bailiff said, handing her a stamped document. Amara froze. Evicted? This is my matrimonial home. Was, the bailiff replied. You've been legally divorced. The house is no longer yours. She turned to Chike's uncle, Uncle Paul, for mercy. Uncle, please. At least let me collect my things. My clothes. My documents. But he sneered. You should be lucky we didn't drag you out when you were cheating with all those boys. Her knees buckled. They gave her 5 minutes. 5. To pack years of love, sacrifice, and betrayal into a single suitcase. She rushed upstairs, trembling, grabbing her documents, a few wrappers, and the baby scan tucked between Bible pages. As she turned to pick a picture frame, one of Chike's relatives tossed her box downstairs. It broke open on the floor, her undergarments, framed certificates, wedding album, and tiny baby shoes scattered like broken memories. Neighbors gathered, watching. Some pitied her. Others whispered. One woman even spat toward her direction and muttered, That's what happens when you don't know how to keep your man. Ngozi watched it all from across the street, holding her baby and smiling. Amara locked eyes with her, and for the first time, she saw the truth in full view. Ngozi wasn't just a betrayer. She was evil, cold, calculated, and entirely without remorse. And the man who was supposed to protect Amara had not even shown up. With shaking hands, Amara gathered her things and walked away. No one offered her help. Her suitcase wheel was broken, and her back hurt from the weight of both the bag and her sorrow. She didn't cry. Not anymore. She had cried all her tears. Now there was only silence, a terrifying, hollow silence that screamed louder than grief. She arrived at her aunt's house dirty, exhausted, and trembling. Her aunt opened the door and let out a loud cry. What have they done to you? Amara didn't answer. She only handed her aunt the eviction paper and the folded baby scan. They've taken everything, she whispered. Her aunt wrapped her in a hug, rocking her like a child. No, my daughter. They took nothing. You're still alive, and your child will be your crown. That night, Amara lay on the floor and whispered, God, I've lost everything. Please don't let me lose myself. With Amara out of the way, Ngozi moved in completely. The house that once held warmth, prayers, and dreams now echoed with shallow laughter, loud phone calls, and constant arguments. At first, Ngozi relished her role as wife. She wore the title like a trophy. She redecorated the house, replacing every trace of Amara. She painted over the walls, burned the wedding photos, and even gave the house help a warning. If you ever call me Auntie Ngozi again, I'll fire you. It's Madame Mao. She paraded herself as Chike's savior, boasting that she gave him what Amara couldn't, a real family. But the honeymoon didn't last long. Chike began to come home late. Again. He drank more. He smelled like other women. Again. He even started leaving his phone open, not caring what Ngozi saw. When she questioned him, he snapped. Don't start. You were a side chick before. Don't act like a wife now. Ngozi was shocked. The man who once worshipped her feet now treated her like a nuisance. He flirted openly with women at parties, sometimes even in front of her. And worse, he started chasing younger girls, Slay Queen's his secretary, even Ngozi's own younger sister. One day, Ngozi came home early and found him shirtless, laughing with her sister in the living room. She screamed, slapped the girl, and demanded answers. Chike simply said, You think you're different from my wife? You think because you have one child, you've become irreplaceable. The words cut deep. Ngozi locked herself in the bathroom that night, staring at her reflection and realizing this was the man she fought to steal. This was the prize she ruined another woman for. And he was never truly hers. He belonged to no one. A serial liar. A serial cheat. A disease wrapped in perfume and confidence. Her body soon began to betray her, too. She started falling ill, discharges, fevers, mysterious rashes. The doctors ran tests. STDs, multiple. Aggressive strains. Some resistant to treatment. She sat on the hospital bed, crying silently, her newborn asleep beside her. Chike didn't come to visit. He was in Abuja, allegedly closing a deal. But she knew better. And the worst part? No one believed her now. People started to whisper, This one too won't last. He's a community man. Some even laughed. Amara dodged a bullet. Ngozi collected the full AK-47. And as she lay in bed that night, sores on her body, the baby crying beside her and silence filling the room, she finally understood what she had done. She hadn't won a husband. She had stolen poison and drank it proudly. Ngozi sat alone in the corner of her bedroom, curled into herself like a frightened child. Her once flawless skin was now marked with painful sores. The burning sensation between her legs hadn't stopped in days, and every medication seemed to fail. The doctor's last words still echoed in her ears. You've contracted multiple strains of STDs, including one that's antibiotic resistant. Some of these may affect your fertility permanently. It was a cruel irony. She who had once laughed at Amara's infertility might now lose her own womb to disease. The shame that had once belonged to Amara now wrapped itself around her like a second skin. But even worse than the physical pain was the emotional isolation. Chaik had stopped sleeping at home. He no longer picked her calls. Sometimes he didn't even come back for days. He treated her like old furniture, something used, worn out, and unworthy of care. She tried to confront him one night, dragging her aching body to the living room where he sat watching football. Chaik, you gave me something. I'm sick. We need to talk. He didn't look up from the screen. I told you to go and treat yourself. Don't disturb me. Is this what I left my peace for? She cried. Is this what I destroyed my best friend for? That got his attention. He stood up slowly and walked over to her. You think I owe you anything? You think I married you out of love? I married you out of shame. Because you opened your legs and carried a child I never asked for. You were never the plan. Those words shattered Ngozi. Her knees buckled, and she sat on the floor, sobbing. This was her reward. This was what she fought for, a man incapable of loyalty, a house filled with contempt, a body riddled with sickness, and a soul haunted by betrayal. Days later, Ngozi's mother visited. She gasped at the state of her daughter. Ngozi, this is not you. What happened to your skin? What happened to your marriage? Ngozi couldn't answer. She sat by the window, rocking her crying baby and staring into space. The same neighborhood that once praised her for being clever and winning the man now avoided her gate. Rumors had begun to spread about her sickness, about Chaik's infidelity, about her reckless past catching up. Even the compound children mocked her baby, calling it the STD baby. Life had flipped, and though Ngozi still managed to feed, the food tasted like ash in her mouth. Her phone buzzed occasionally with WhatsApp messages from old friends asking, "How far now?" But she never replied, because deep down she knew she wasn't far at all. She was right where karma said she'd be. Amara's childbirth was not easy. It came with hours of pain, heavy bleeding, and moments where the midwife feared she might not make it. But she did. By the grace of God, she pushed through, holding on to life with the same stubbornness that had carried her through betrayal and public shame. When the baby's cry finally filled the hospital room, Amara wept. Not the kind of tears she cried during her suffering, but a different kind, tears of release, of arrival, of promise, a healthy baby boy. The nurses were shocked at how calm she was. No loud celebration, no Instagram post, no balloons. Just Amara quietly singing a worship song, holding her child like a fragile miracle. Her aunt stood in the corner, crying silently. Your God did not forget you, she whispered. Amara smiled. He never does. He just takes his time. In the following weeks, Amara stayed with her aunt, nursing her baby and slowly reclaiming herself. She turned pain into purpose. She began writing, journaling her journey from silence to strength. A local publisher saw some of her social media posts and offered to collaborate on a book titled Scars Before Sunrise. It became a bestseller in their circle. Women everywhere relating to her journey of infertility, betrayal, and survival. She was invited to speak at women's forums, churches, and private events. Her voice, once silenced by shame, now carried power. The same people who once whispered about her began to quote her. She never mentioned names, never attacked Ngozi or Chaik. She didn't need to. Her dignity spoke louder than revenge. Each speaking engagement, each testimonial, each woman she encouraged became a brick in the foundation of her new life. And yet, despite her rising fame, Amara remained grounded. She didn't change her tone, her clothes, or her values. She stayed in her aunt's house, raised her child with love, and remained humble. But deep within her was a quiet fire. She had no plans to destroy Chaik or Ngozi. She knew the universe had already taken care of that. Her focus was her child, whom she named Chisholm. God accompanies me. Every time she looked at him, she remembered the long road she had walked barefoot. She would sing to him softly, I walked through fire, but I came out gold. She didn't need to wear vengeance like a medal. Her survival was the loudest scream. And one day, she would walk past those who mocked her, not with bitterness, but with proof that grace doesn't need permission to show up late. Chaik sat in the boardroom of his company's headquarters, sweating profusely despite the air conditioning. A few months ago, the company was thriving, contracts flowing, clients satisfied, partners trusting. But now, everything was falling apart. 3 deals had been canceled. His top investor pulled out. Staff had begun resigning mysteriously. Word had spread. Chaik's personal life was affecting his professional integrity. Photos of him with multiple women, screenshots of his crude messages, and even voice notes leaked online. You can't manage your home, but you want to manage our funds? One investor texted him before withdrawing $2.5 million from a development deal. Chaik paced his office, trying to call everyone. No one answered. Even his right-hand man, Martins, had stopped showing up. Karma had taken off its shoes and made itself comfortable in his life. At home, things were worse. Ngozi was constantly sick and paranoid. The house was no longer peaceful. She accused him of poisoning her. He accused her of ruining his life. Their child cried constantly, sickly, fussy, always in and out of clinics. Bills piled up. The generator stopped working. The cleaner quit. Rats began to roam freely. Chaik had gone from champagne to Gary in under a year. And the worst part? Amara was everywhere, on TV, in magazines, in community halls. Her story had inspired a movement. Women quoted her. Men respected her resilience. Clients once loyal to Chaik now hosted her at corporate events. Her name was rising like dawn, soft, gentle, and inevitable. Chaik hated it, but he couldn't stop it. Because the truth was, he missed her. He missed the peace she brought, the prayers, the stability, the loyalty. And he knew he could never have it again. One evening, he stood at his balcony, looking out at the dusty street, sipping cheap beer. A friend from the past passed by and shouted, Odogwu, how market? Chaik forced a smile, hiding the pain. That night, he saw a video clip of Amara holding a mic, telling a group of women, they took everything from me, but I kept my soul, and that became the seed of my future. The crowd erupted. Chaik turned off his phone. For the first time in a long time, he sat down and cried, not out of pride, not out of anger, but out of loss. Because he knew he had lost something rare, something pure, something unrepeatable, and he handed it over for a counterfeit. It had been over 2 years since Amara last saw Chaik in person. Not since the day he humiliated her at his office. Not since the day she collapsed with her gift bag in front of his colleagues while he held Ngozi's baby. A lot had changed since then. Amara had grown stronger, not just emotionally, but in presence. Her posture, once timid, now carried grace and quiet confidence. Her son, Chisholm, was already walking and talking in short, sweet sentences. Her face had a glow that came from healing, not makeup. She had just been invited to speak at a national women's summit, and on her way to finalize a publishing contract. She stepped into the corporate headquarters of a Lagos-based media company. As she entered the elevator, her phone buzzed. She answered quickly, not noticing the man who entered behind her, until a scent struck a chord in her memory. She turned slowly, and there he was. Chaik stood just a few steps behind her, dressed in a worn-out suit, his eyes sunken, his face pale with fatigue. His once confident posture was now stiff, like a man used to rejection. He blinked, staring at her like he'd seen a ghost. She looked the same, no better. Glowing, graceful, powerful. Amara didn't speak first. She only stared at him with a calm, unreadable expression. Chike cleared his throat, adjusted his tie nervously, and said, "Amara." Her name trembled on his lips. She gave a small nod. "Chike." Nothing more. He tried to smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. "You look different." She smiled gently. "Healing does that." There was a heavy silence between them, one that held shame, memory, and 1,000 unsaid apologies. "I didn't expect to see you here," he said. "Neither did I," she replied. Then the elevator stopped and the doors opened. As she stepped out, Chike followed. "Amara, wait," he called out. She stopped, turned halfway, and looked at him. "Is there something you want to say?" He struggled. "I've made terrible mistakes." She raised a hand, silencing him. "I'm not here for apologies. Not today. Life already gave me the closure I needed." "I'm sorry," he said, his voice breaking. "I know it doesn't fix anything, but I am." Her eyes softened for a moment, but only briefly. "You didn't just break a vow. You believed lies without even asking me for the truth. And you let the woman who destroyed us walk freely into the life we built, then blamed me for the ruins." Chike dropped his gaze. Amara stepped closer and whispered, "But I survived. I rose. And I forgave myself for ever thinking your love was the answer to my prayers." She walked away, her heels echoing down the marble corridor, leaving Chike rooted in silence, watching the woman he could never reclaim. Ngozi lay on the hospital bed, her skin a dull yellow, her eyes bloodshot, her frame thin and frail. The diagnosis had come weeks ago, chronic pelvic inflammatory disease, with complications from untreated STDs that had scarred her womb. The doctors had warned her years ago, but she had ignored it. Now, her body had turned on her. Her mother sat by the bed, tears running down her cheeks. "Ngozi, I warned you. I told you to leave that man. I told you this path was cursed." Ngozi turned away, unable to look at her. Her baby, now 2, was being cared for by her younger cousin. Chike had stopped coming to visit. In fact, no one had seen him in over a week. Rumors were that he'd relocated temporarily to Port Harcourt for a project. Others said he'd moved in with another woman. Ngozi didn't know which was true. All she knew was that the house she once stole now felt like a coffin. Food was a struggle. Bills piled up. The staff left. Her once perfect, Instagram-worthy life had become a haunting silence. She would scroll through her phone sometimes, watching old videos, Chike massaging her pregnant belly, them dancing in matching pajamas, her laughing as she flaunted wife goals. Now those same videos triggered nausea. The very man she used to taunt Amara now treated her like a burden. Her calls were ignored. When he did answer, it was always with annoyance. "You again," he once snapped. "I'm not your caretaker." She had become what she once mocked, abandoned, unloved, and forgotten. Her health deteriorated daily. The church she once stopped attending began sending women fellowship members to visit her. One of them sat beside her one evening and said, "We don't know what happened, but we heard Amara's story, and we're praying for your healing, not just physically, but spiritually." Those words struck something in her. For the first time in years, Ngozi broke down and confessed to herself, to her mother, and to God. "I ruined her life. I lied. I manipulated. I took what wasn't mine. And now look at me." Her mother wept with her. "God still sees you, Ngozi. But the path to peace starts with repentance." That night, Ngozi made the boldest move she'd ever made. She picked up her phone and typed a message to Amara. A long one, confessing everything, from the false chats to the suggestion of sleeping with younger boys, to seducing Chike, to faking victimhood. She sent it. No response came. She waited. But it didn't matter. She had said the truth. And that was the beginning. Because even though redemption may never come fully, confession was the first crack in her prison wall. She fell asleep with tears on her pillow, tears not of victory, but of brokenness. Amara sat on her small balcony that Sunday morning, the breeze dancing through her son's curls, as he played quietly with his plastic truck. Her phone buzzed. She picked it up, expecting a message from her publisher, but what she saw made her chest tighten. It was a long message from Ngozi. At first, she hesitated. She hadn't seen that name on her screen in over 2 years. Her fingers hovered, but something in her spirit nudged her to open it. As she read, her hands trembled. Line by line, the truth unfolded. Every manipulation, every twisted lie, every strategy. It was all there. Ngozi's confession was raw, ugly, and detailed. Amara felt sick. Even after all this time, the depth of the betrayal still had the power to wound her. But strangely, she wasn't angry. She wasn't shocked. She just felt empty. She closed her eyes and whispered, "God, thank you for showing me. And thank you for healing me before I ever read this." Later that evening, she met with her lawyer, who was now also handling her book rights and speaking engagements. "You could sue for defamation," the lawyer said. "We have her written confession now. That could clear your name publicly." Amara thought about it. She really did. But then she remembered the scripture, "Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord." "No," she finally replied. "Let her live with the truth. That's punishment enough." The lawyer nodded slowly. "You're sure?" Amara nodded. "I don't need the world to know. I just needed to know. And now that I do, I can finally close that chapter." She walked out of the office into the sunlit parking lot and smiled for the first time in weeks. Not the smile of a woman who won, but the smile of one who was finally free. But karma wasn't done yet. Days later, Chaik walked into a corporate seminar, invited unknowingly to the same venue where Amara was speaking. As he sat in the back row, he watched her take the stage. The lights hit her perfectly. She wore a soft cream-colored blouse, ochre trousers, and no jewelry, just elegance. Her voice rang clear. "There was a time I believed that betrayal could break me. But what I learned was this: betrayal reveals what you truly have inside. And I thank God I had strength." The crowd clapped. Chaik wiped his eyes without knowing why. After the session, he tried to approach her, but security held him back. Amara saw him from a distance. She gave a nod, a quiet nod of recognition. But she didn't go over. She simply turned to her assistant and said, "Let's go. I have another meeting at 3. And just like that, the man who once dismissed her as a burden now couldn't even get 5 minutes of her time. It began with a knock at her gate. A hesitant, uncertain knock. The kind that carried the weight of shame and desperation. Amara wasn't expecting anyone that morning, but something told her not to send the house help. She stepped out, baby Chisholm on her hip, and walked toward the gate. When she opened it, her heart sank, not in pain, but in recognition of a full circle. Chaik stood there, looking nothing like the man who once held power over her life. His shirt was rumpled, his face gaunt, his eyes bloodshot. And beside him, in a wheelchair pushed by a cousin, sat Ngozi. Thin, visibly ill, with a headscarf covering thinning hair and patches of infection on her skin. Both of them looked like they had walked through fire. Amara didn't flinch. She simply stared, her grip on her child firm. "What do you want?" she asked, her voice calm, cold, but not bitter. Chaik cleared his throat, then fell to his knees. "Amara, please. I don't deserve your forgiveness. I know that. But I couldn't die with this guilt in my chest." His voice cracked. "I threw you away. I believed lies. I let jealousy and weakness guide me. And I lost everything. My peace, my name, my dignity." Amara said nothing. Ngozi began to cry. "Amara, you were my only friend. You trusted me. And I ruined your life. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just needed to say it. I'm dying, Amara. The doctors say I may not see the end of the year." Her voice trembled. "I needed you to hear the truth from my lips. I destroyed your name. I manipulated your husband. I suggested sin, then punished you for it. I did it all. I was the enemy in your bedroom." Her head bowed. Chaik wept openly now, still kneeling. "We both failed you." The silence that followed was unbearable. Even the birds seemed to stop chirping. Amara looked from Chaik to Ngozi, then down at her son, who stared at the broken adults with curiosity. She stepped forward slowly and whispered, "I don't hate you. Not anymore. Hating you would mean I'm still chained to what you did." She looked directly at Ngozi. "I hope God shows you mercy. Not because you deserve it, but because no soul is too far gone to return." Then, at Chike, "You didn't just lose me. You lost yourself. And no amount of begging will give you back the version of me you threw away." She turned and walked toward the door. "You may leave now. I have a son to raise, and he deserves to see what peace looks like." She didn't slam the gate. She didn't shout. She simply closed it, softly, firmly, leaving them outside, like the ghosts of a past she had long outgrown. It was a beautiful Sunday morning when Amara stood before a sea of women in a packed hall, the golden sun streaming through the windows like a divine spotlight. She wore a simple white gown, no jewelry, no makeup, just her. Her presence radiated calm power. The theme of the women's conference was Beauty for Ashes, and Amara was the keynote speaker. Her story had gone national. She had turned her pain into purpose. She had started a foundation for single mothers and women recovering from betrayal and abuse. Her book Scars Before Sunrise had sold over 150,000 copies. She was now the face of endurance, of quiet strength, of womanhood without shame. As she took the stage, Chisholm watched her from the front row, clapping excitedly. Her eyes met his, and for a brief moment, her entire journey flashed before her. The nights of tears, the betrayal, the rejection, the fainting spell, and the rise. She spoke with poise, her voice clear and melodic. "Many of you know my story, but what you don't know is what I prayed during my darkest hour. I didn't pray for revenge. I didn't pray for fire to consume my enemies. I prayed to survive. I prayed to hold on long enough to become someone my pain couldn't recognize. And that's what happened. I didn't need them to come back and apologize. I needed to look in the mirror and see someone I could love again." The crowd burst into applause. Women wiped tears. Mothers hugged daughters. Husbands shifted uncomfortably, learning through her words. Amara wasn't just telling a story. She was living proof that betrayal does not define a woman. Her pain did not break her. It built her, and she was now a pillar many leaned on for strength. After the event, a young girl approached her, thin, anxious, wearing a faded scarf. She clutched Amara's book like a lifeline. "Ma, I'm pregnant. My fiancé left me. My mother says I should abort. But after hearing you, I think maybe I can make it. Maybe this child isn't a mistake." Amara pulled the girl into an embrace. "This child is a beginning, not an end," she whispered. "And so are you." Later that night, Amara sat on her balcony under the moonlight, Chisholm asleep in her arms. She looked up at the stars and smiled. Not because everything was perfect, but because she had survived the impossible, with her heart intact. She didn't go back. She didn't fight dirty. She didn't beg for validation. She simply rose. And in doing so, she became something stronger than a wife, than a victim, than a woman scorned. She became Amara, whole, radiant, and untouchable. Thank you for watching this video. What did you learn from this story? Drop it in the comments. Please make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to my YouTube channel Tochi Stories for more.